Welcome to the Real Estate 401k Show. Here are your hosts, Ryan Gerdes, Mike Weinstein, and Justin Frederick, helping you build a legacy of wealth through real estate. Powered by the Recon Group at West USA and the Frederick team with Fairway Mortgage. NMLS number 625918.
Well, welcome back to the Real Estate 401k Show. I'm your host, Mike Weinstein, alongside Justin Frederick and Ryan Gerdes. You're going to want to text the word construction to 623-AZ Recon. That's construction to AZ Recon. I think we do have an episode in the archives that I think we briefly touched on the topic of construction loans, but I thought it would be just perfect to reintroduce it and have that conversation because Ryan, you're just beginning that process. You got some land, and you're going to begin the process of building a magnificent series of homes. But we're going to start with home number one, and you're going to be looking at construction loans. But Justin, I thought I'd just start with you. Kind of give us some of the basics of construction loans, and I'm just going to let Ryan kind of tell the story of what he's finding and some of the lessons for us as fellow investors or homeowners as well.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of people out there that want to build and they just don't know the right place to start. And I think one of the biggest pieces of the puzzle that people don't understand is you can actually buy the land and build the home all within the same loan. A lot of people think that you have to buy the land outright by itself.
And then what we're told, if you're just going to buy the land, it's always better to pay cash because sometimes it's hard to get financing for land. But now you're saying, hey, there's an easier path.
There is, but you have to be ready to play right away. You have to get your plans put together. You have to really bundle a lot of stuff into a short period of time to get ready to go.
Which can make things difficult because if the land doesn't match up with the envelope that you need, then
you're forcing yourself to make decisions quickly rather than maybe sitting on it. But it was easy for us. I bought the land and did the whole thing all together. Because we had already had a design of the house picked out, and we knew what we were getting into. We had looked at this land for a long time.
You're just wishing the fences on the horse stall were a little taller, though, right?
Absolutely.
Or maybe had a couple of car batteries hooked up to it.
This son of a bitch. If you want to know that story. Text in.
Text horse to 623-AZ Recon.
Trust me, you don't want to text in.
No,
okay.
Let's go ahead.
It goes from bad to worse real
quick. Hurts your soul. Anyways, now that Mike's taken us off our path like normal, there's construction loans are fairly easy to accomplish, and you'd be surprised at how little down you need to have for a construction loan as well. The big thing is just making sure you have enough assets to cover for any types of issues or things that you want to do along the way. They definitely make you put some funds aside for problems, but pretty simple, pretty easy to do. Just need to have higher credit scores typically, and be prepared to run through the gauntlet.
All right, if you'd like some more information about construction loans, go ahead and text the word construction. I know it's a big word. It's a lot to text while driving, but so don't text while driving. But anyways, text the word construction to 623-AZ Recon. And I just know for a fact that our good friend Brent is going to be texting the word horse to 623-AZ Recon because our good friend Brent, he listens all the time. So we're just going to forward. Just go ahead and call Brent after
Brent,
this
just
episode.
call me. Don't text. Just call my phone.
All right. I don't want to position this like you're a novice to this. Obviously, you're very well versed in construction loans and investing and so forth. But you and your wife bought a piece of land up in the North Phoenix area and got the plans. And I want to just, further this conversation based on You guys have already done all the soils and you've done all the preliminary work that you do when you acquire raw land. You have raw land, paid cash for it. What are you learning?
Well, what I'm learning is, I mean, a lot of this stuff I knew because I've helped a lot of folks go through this process. This is the first time we've personally have gone through it to build a primary residence. All the homes that we've ever moved into were either built by a big box builder or a resale home. So this is our first time doing something completely custom that we're taking from scratch. So the biggest moving part is that when you're doing an acquisition of land and you're wanting to build a home on it, the difference between that and resale is you're actually trying to put together a story to tell. Whereas when you're buying resale, you're buying a story that was already told.
You're just going to add another chapter to it.
Right. And so a lot more chapters. And so that's why it can be so difficult for a lot of folks to move through this. So case in point, when COVID hit and we just started seeing ridiculous rises in value, it was like, man, I can go over there and I can build for cheaper than what I can buy a resale home for price per square foot. And while that's true, so many people move into it or move into this concept with no plan. They have no real idea. They might have a few jumping points, but they haven't really consulted anybody who's been through it. And so they don't even know what questions to ask, much less what the answer to these questions are.
And that's why you hire a real estate wealth manager, frankly.
Yeah, for sure. So where people go blind in costs and where they lose their ass is through change orders. Meaning they put something in writing and then they want to change it after the fact. And so that's going to mess up material, that's going to mess up engineering, that's going to mess up architecture, that's going to impact timelines, it's going to impact everything. Permitting.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, it's the butterfly effect.
Yeah.
So you change one small thing and then it just starts going down the line. And then all of a sudden, you wanted to add 50 square feet to your closet. And now all of a sudden you're like, why do I have to literally change everything in there? It's because there's a process, okay? And so you have to go into it with that plan before you start submitting for permit even. Up front, you're going to need to do the things that you need to do, soils, survey, setbacks, easements, all those fun things, just to even establish what they call it as an envelope. An envelope is the buildable square footage that a lot will allow. So if you're buying an acre and there's like a wash going through it, or if there's big sidewalks or something, that's going to affect your overall envelope. From there, you can decide what type of floor plan is going to best fit your scenario. So we've learned so much about, all these things that I just mentioned, namely patent easements.
Yeah.
We could.
I mean, I'm not going to go into the weeds on it, but I had never even heard of such an easement.
When you get to the point that we are sitting down, and I say you, holding court with our brokers to teach them about patent easements.
Guys that have been in the industry 50, 60 years, they never even heard of it. And I'm over here negotiating with the county on how to get an abandonment on it. And like, well, you got to let us know when you're done with that because, and then you get into the weeds with it, and all of a sudden you find out that this is a very, very common thing, particularly on county islands. And so every single property has its own quirks and idiosyncrasies that you just need to work through and be fluid with. And a lot of people don't have the stomach or the sand for it. And that's why they either go blind in costs and end up really upside down on things, or they get completely discouraged and they walk away from it entirely. So understand that you need to front load some work. And I like that there's programs out there that require you to have all those things put together and in writing.
Well, that was going to be my next question, and I was going to encourage our listeners to go ahead and text the word construction to 623-AZ-RECON if you'd like some more information about construction loans. But to what Justin was talking about, Ryan, was there are programs out there where you can basically combine the acquisition of the land and do the construction together.
Right.
In your experience, though, let's say I'm going to do that, and I've identified an acre of land, but that's all I've done. How much time should I allow, in your opinion, for escrow to be able to do all of my other due diligence as far as coming up with the plans and getting everything before I now close escrow, and now I've got to be getting ready to start construction?
So there's going to be a couple of things to really pay attention to. Number one, what municipality and county that it's in, because that's going to weigh heavily on what they will allow. And number two, if it's within a homeowners association. So homeowners associations, they will make you go blind with comments and changes. The higher the I don't know, I guess the more elite homeowners associations that are out there, they're going to have hundreds of pages of requirements. And if you don't adhere to every single one of those, I mean, the people that are reviewing these things, they know those manuals like the back of their hand. And so
Yeah, they do.
And so they can look at a corner, a color scheme, a plan, a size, a whatever, the direction that it faces. And page number 75, section 32, line 8 says that this needs to be changed to that. And then you're just going to get a novel of comments that you need to work through in order to understand feasibility, cost, timelines, so on. So to answer your question, those are some big things. Like if there's no HOA and you're dealing with a fairly flexible municipality, minimum 60 days.
Yeah. And I was just going to also say, Justin, I'll let you jump in. And I know we discussed it on our last episode with Christopher Charles, our real estate attorney. One thing you have to keep in mind, just because a piece of property is not in an HOA does not mean that there are not CC&Rs. And so you have to pay attention and make sure that there are no CC&Rs, and if there are, what are the guidelines within the CC&Rs? Justin?
Yeah, and back to the close of escrow, I mean, I would just say as long as possible. And the reason why I say that, especially if you're trying to acquire the land and do the construction portion, give yourself enough time to really run through everything, paint it out on the ground, all kinds of stuff. But there is so much legwork that has to be done with constructing a home, and utilities too. That's something that we didn't mention. Knowing where your utilities are, easements, all the easements,
utility easements,
setbacks, just like you were saying. There's a lot that's involved in just because you acquired the piece of land, and just like you were talking about with the CC&Rs and what the city designation is based on the land and what you can have there. That's important to know as well. For example, we talked about my horses. We didn't know when we bought our land that we were limited to 3 horses per acre, because there's houses across the street that are County Island that had 6 horses, but we didn't know that it was County Island. We're right across the street. They all look the same, but it's different. Ours is Peoria, theirs is county, and so we couldn't have as many horses as we wanted on the property. So very important, whatever you're looking to do, to read through those designations through the city and your CC&Rs, because they both matter, right? So I say the longer the better on the close of escrow, because we did a 60-day close of escrow. It really helped us prepare for what we needed for when we close the close of escrow, or when we close escrow, because as soon as we closed escrow, we had a timeline on when we had to have everything done.
Yeah.
So it seems
and not
like
just everything done, phases. They were on a schedule too. So even if it meant that you were going to get it all done in 9 months, well, you still had to make sure pad or foundation were done by this date. I mean,
Correct.
It's just a huge calendar and schedule.
All right. So if you can, last question for you, Ryan, if we can make it as brief as possible. And I know we're talking about construction loans right now, but what are some of the things that we need to be aware of or ensure that are included in our contract with the builder? Because oftentimes we're using a custom home builder. And I know you've gone through it, and you've got a great builder that we work with, but as far as for our listeners, our investors, what are some of those nuances to the contract that we need to pay attention to?
I would say number one, insurance. Making sure that they're being accountable to your lending guidelines, to your personal guidelines, if then type of comments in there, right? So if you aren't done with the pad and foundation per schedule, then you are going to be penalized X amount of dollars. Or if you're ahead of schedule, I say reward the contractor, right? So make it equally accountable for both you and them in order to incentivize them to stick to the schedule and deliver a quality product, right? So, and then, life happens, things happen. There's people out there with sticky fingers that they'll go see a yard with a lumber package, a couple of air conditioning units or copper plumbing, and they decide that they're going to back their truck up at 2:00 in the morning and load it up there. And now all of a sudden it's not there, right? So insurance, construction insurance, making sure that there's proper coverage in the event something like that should happen so that you can be compensated and you're not over there holding the ball. So I'd say that that's probably the biggest one. And then, you have builder reputation.
Sure, do your homework.
Yeah, all those things, making sure that they're not only going to do the job, but they're going to do the job right and on time. I mean, those things are, in my opinion, are kind of the big, like the kind of common sense ones. But I think the thing that's most overlooked, that's probably the most important, is insurance.
We are talking construction loans and construction contracts. If you'd like some more information about acquiring land and building and looking into construction lending, go ahead and text the word construction to 623-AZ-RECON. That's construction to 623-AZ-RECON.
Thank you for joining us on the Real Estate 401k Show. If you want more information on how to build wealth, click on the link or text us at 623-297-3266. That's 623-AZ-RECON.